Hey, it's Chris. I just recently moved, and so for several months, I've been just working with a temporary desk setup. And so I'm finally getting around to dreaming and scheming about what my new setup is gonna be. So in this video, I wanna share with you all the stuff I just ordered for the new setup, and I wanna talk about things like the desk and the furniture and the art, etc., along with all the alternatives that I considered to kind of give you some inspiration and ideas as well. And I think I've got some advice that you might actually find pretty useful when putting together your own dream office or desk setup. So here's a picture of my most recent desk setup. This is from last year at my old house. Pretty decent, not too bad. And this right here is my temporary setup right now. Pretty boring, pretty lackluster. Basically, I'm just using an old autonomous standing desk and some previous gear that I've just kind of had laying around. But right now, I have the opportunity to just start fresh, start from scratch, and say, what do I want my ideal work environment to be? The end goal, I guess, is just for you guys to come along for the ride, number one, and then also get some inspiration, some ideas in terms of products, brands, layouts, whatever, for your own setup. So let me just quickly break down the main items that I ordered for the new setup, starting with the desk, which I got from Room and Board. And don't worry, I'm gonna link up everything that I can down in the description. Some of it may be affiliate links, some of it won't. But I'll just make it as easy as I can for you to check this stuff out. The desk, the centerpiece, the foundation of my new setup that I ultimately picked is the Pratt desk. It's 60 inches wide, it's minimal, and it's gonna be amazing. It doesn't have any built-in storage, you might notice, but that's partly why it's so sleek. But this model is super customizable, which I love. So I went with a walnut butcher block top sitting on a white frame. This time I did not go looking for a standing desk, very specifically, for a very simple reason. I never end up standing at my standing desk as it is. So it's like, I know I'm gonna sit, why pretend? So while I was at Room and Board, I also grabbed a matching C-shaped end table from the Pratt collection, which I got for a very specific reason. I'm excited about it. I'm gonna touch on it in just a minute, but it's crucial to my overall plan. Now, just getting back to the desk, I was looking for something pretty basic, pretty minimal, and so I did consider some other options. I considered the Lena office desk from Poly and Bark. I also considered the Jorn media desk from Inside Weather, and the super basic and also super cheap office desk from Branch. I also looked at things like the Ford desk from Zuri, or the Protractor from Cardeal, and the Monroe executive desk from Crate and Barrel. Now, credit where credit is due, my wife actually introduced me to the Pratt desk, so she gets full credit. But the reason I ended up going with it is because you just can't beat the customization. And for me, for my space, it turned out to be just the right size. And even there, I could customize. Now, after I got that desk situation all sorted out, since that's kind of the cornerstone of your desk setup, your office space, then I turned to a brand I found that I like called Inside Weather. And I pretty much used them to round out all the rest of the furniture in the space. So I picked up a sideboard slash credenza, which, yeah, it looks pretty funky and arty because I customized it, but I really love that Inside Weather lets you customize the ever-loving crap out of everything, which is really unique. I've never seen anything like that. Also, something else that I really liked about Inside Weather is that they make it really easy to view your furniture in AR in your space. So you get a really good feel for the sizing and fit that way, and I found that actually to be super useful. Now, the sideboard, that isn't just for storage or for looking good, right? It's actually also strategically placed to cover up the rat's nest that's surrounding my surge protector. Now that is what you call cable management. I also got some bookcases. I got a skinny one to go by the door, and it was cool that they had an 18-incher that would fit. And then I got a larger one for over by my window, which I actually might move down to the studio and end up replacing if I find something better. I kind of have something in mind, so you just have to stay tuned for the next episode in this little mini series to see what I went with. I probably actually will put some books on the bookcases, both like books that I'm gonna read and maybe something that's even almost decorative. I don't know. If you go to Phaidon, they have some really cool design books that are just organized by color, and I've seriously considered just ordering some because I like the way that they look. But they're also design books, so if you just want to peek in and look at some architecture or just art, like something beyond just like YouTube and my regular world. Sometimes you have to step out of your normal world to get some inspiration. then that could be cool. Now, as I was sitting there dreaming about this setup and what I wanted to do, it became obvious that I really wanted an alternative seating area so that I wouldn't just be glued to the desk all the time. I wanted like some other place to go and sit and work. And this is where that C-shaped end table I told you about earlier comes into play. It's gonna be like an alternate mobile desk that I can just park in front of like a sofa or a chair. I did find a few other cool C-shaped end tables though. So I looked at the Yo table from Design Within Reach, which actually is height adjustable, which is nice. And the Mag table, also from Design Within Reach, which is just super versatile because it can be used like 3 different ways. Then there was the colorful Mark side table from Hive, which was kind of different. And I came really close to buying the Tobias Network table from Beam because it was a little bit wider. And then there was the Slim from Room and Board, which was pretty cool too. It's just at the end of the day, instead of mixing and matching too much, I thought I'll just have the consistency of having that match the desk. So that's what I did. And actually I was really leaning towards like a leather couch, something just nice, you know, to lounge on that looked good. And so I found a few options. There was a 72-incher that would fit in my space from Poly and Bark, and that was kind of cool. And then I looked also at the Block Nomad from Burrow, which was okay. And then I also considered the Hoxton Love Seat from CB2. All of these being like smaller sized couches that could actually fit in that space, or so I thought. You know, doing the measurements is like, I think that will fit in the door. It would definitely fit in my space where I wanted it, but I wasn't sure I could get in the door. So ultimately I decided against going with a couch that was hard to give up because I really wanted it. But I was like, you know what, I'll just find a cool chair or some cool chairs. What I did was I just decided to go with Inside Weather's Espresso Vita lounge chair in Onyx vegan leather, just because it was gonna match everything that I'd already gotten from them. And actually, it's not that small of a chair. It's got like a mid-century modern-y wing design that takes up quite a bit of space. I found out thanks to the AR demo. So I'm definitely gonna look forward to reading in the chair, just kind of relaxing, hanging out. I do a lot of research, so I can do that in the chair. But I think more than anything, because that end table, it can slide right in, I'm gonna use it as an iPad station. So when I'm typing, or even when I'm just drawing or making sketches or some notes, I think that is all gonna happen in that chair. Also, I think there's just something for me about moving around. It can kind of jostle your brain, get some different ideas flowing. You know, if you're just parked at your desk, you're literally just seeing the same thing all the time. But if I have a chair, I literally will get a different view because the last thing to talk about is the different art that I got to spread all over the office, kind of provide some motivation, and obviously be a source of inspiration too. So at this point, I'm not sure if you picked up on it, but I'm kind of shooting for a black, white, walnut art look. And so that's kind of coming through in all these different pieces. Stepping back and just looking at the big picture, one of the things that I thought about when I was putting this together, when I was dreaming this all up, was maybe going for kind of an art museum-y kind of look. Now, obviously, I can't just plop my desk down in the middle of Denver Art Museum and get to work. But what I can do is kind of bring the spirit of, you know, the architecture with the lines and the creativity, the inspiration that's all over in there, and put that in my workspace. So that's what I was kind of trying to do, to infuse it with that kind of a look and level of creativity. The thing is, I think at least for me, I tend to be more creative the more creativity I'm surrounded by. And arguably, some of the furniture that I got feels kind of like art itself, you know, the sideboard or the chair in particular. You know, like a lot of thought and design went into it. It's kind of like sitting on a sculpture. But in terms of the art that actually goes on the walls, I did pick up some line art prints from Inside Weather. They're 20 by 30, so fairly good sized. I got 3 of those. They're gonna go on the wall over my desk, and they all have a walnut frame that's gonna kind of match everything else from Inside Weather, which is a nice bonus. Then I also did kind of the standard startup-y entrepreneur thing, and I got some canvases from Iconic, which does have some motivational themed stuff, some of which is borderline cheesy, but there is some good stuff in there. And they've done some cool collaborations, like with Gary Vee, so there is some worthwhile stuff. So I got a few. I went with the Nobody Cares, Work Harder, and the Price of Happiness canvases. Those are 30 by 40 inches. And I'm gonna put those on the wall to my left when I'm sitting at my desk, so over that sideboard. And then I also got one called The Climb, which is longer, to go over the top of the closet. The other thing that I did though was I grabbed a couple of museum quality prints that I liked from Andy Blank, which I'll put on the bookshelves maybe, or maybe on top of the sideboard, I'm not sure. I guess just stay tuned for one of the future episodes and you'll see how everything actually pieces together. But overall though, I'm pretty excited with how I think everything's gonna turn out. We'll see when it gets here and it gets all set up. But yeah, I'm feeling good about it. Now, This has taken me weeks, if not months, of like research, planning, comparing stuff. And I feel like throughout this whole process, I have a few actionable tips that I can provide to make this go a little bit easier for you when you're creating your dream setup. Tip number 1, I feel like this is really important. If you're gonna make your desk setup truly worth it, it has to be yours. What I'm saying is don't just go out and copy something that you saw on Instagram because you like the way that it looked. That's not gonna be something that's tailor-made for you. And that's really all that matters. Not the looks, but the functionality. So they say form follows function, and I think that's good. You should focus on the functionality, the things that you need to accomplish, and then think about the looks. So for me, the way to do that was to look at my current setup and maybe my previous setups and say what was working and what doesn't work. Like, what do I need to change? So for me, I looked at the setup and I was like, I know I need to build around an ultra wide monitor again because I just love it. So what that translated to was me wanting a wider desk than I had been using. Similarly, I looked at my desk and I was like, one surface, that's really not enough. So that's why I ended up going with that side table, and I even considered just getting 2 desks and maybe even sticking a Blick surface skin on the second one, kind of like what I've done here in the studio. But obviously I ended up going in a different direction. So I did get 2 surfaces, but I didn't need, I decided, a huge surface for my second surface. Just that side table was gonna be enough. Literally a place to set my iPad. So all I'm just saying is when it comes time to redo your setup, use your setup as a starting place. Don't use somebody else's, because then you'll end up building it around your actual needs. Tip number 2, start keeping track of all the cool products and brands that you just randomly run into, instead of just being like, that's cool, and flipping away from that tab or whatever. Like, keep track of that stuff. Now, the problem for me in the past, when I was trying to keep track of stuff like that, was how do I store it quickly so that it won't bog down for me? Because then I'll just be like, if it takes too long, I'm not gonna save it. And then how do I organize it and be able to find it later so that it's useful? Well, the solution for me was to use MyMind, one of my all-time favorite apps. Covered it in a recent iPhone apps video, but it just lets me really simply and quickly save stuff. I don't have to tag it or do anything. The AI just handles all of that stuff. And when I go into MyMind, I just search for desk or side table or art or whatever it is, and it shows up. My tip number 3 is just to visualize as much as you can. So that could be AR, like literally visualize it in space. That was helpful, but not every company has that. The thing that I did, well, 2 things actually. One was to kind of make some sketches of stuff. I did a lot of top-down sketches of my space, which is just a square, so that was really easy to do, in Apple Notes with the Apple Pencil on the iPad. And what really came in handy for me was the smart objects. So if you start drawing a shape just roughly and then you pause for just a second, it will snap into a perfect square or circle or triangle or whatever. And that's really great for just quickly and easily mocking up a room or some furniture. You can draw an arrow the same way and label stuff. So I did that. The other thing that was really useful to me when I was doing that was you can use a selection tool and select whatever and then tap on it and you can duplicate it. So you can kind of make the bare outline of your office, duplicate it a few times. And then even beyond that, just taking some screenshots of stuff and maybe pasting in a link to something too so you can find it easily. That was actually really useful. I mean, what that let me do was see what everything would look like next to each other. Or you can actually create a mood board. There's lots of mood boarding apps. I used Muse, which I've covered before in the latest iPad apps video. And that was really helpful as well for just visualizing everything together. So whatever method works best for you, I would just recommend actually try to visualize it as much as you can. All right, so that's it. So hopefully this video was useful. Like I said, I'm gonna make kind of a mini series out of this. You know what I've realized is I can just ramble for so long. This video, I could probably make it 3 hours without cracking a sweat, but I gotta wrap it up at some point. I was actually shooting for 9.5 minutes. I'm guessing it's gonna be more like 12 or 15, but we'll see. Thanks for watching. Let me know what questions you have. Don't forget, I've linked stuff up down below, actually linked it up, not just listed it, to make this as useful as possible. You guys can check me out. I'm at Daily Tech, spelled Daily T-E-K-K, on Instagram and Twitter. There's the Daily Tech After Party, that's the podcast. It's returning for the new year here. Anyways, good luck with your own setup. Don't forget to make it uniquely yours. I'll catch you in the next video. Later.